Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're headed to Braddock, Pennsylvania.
Braddock, Pennsylvania.
A town, well, it's practically built around this massive steel mill, the Edgar Thompson Works. And get this, it's almost 2 miles long.
Wow, 2 miles.
Yeah. For over a century, this mill has been like the heart and soul of the town. Braddock used to be this booming steel town, bustling with life. 20,000 people live there.
20,000.
But now
Mhm.
it's shrunk down to just 1,700. It's a pretty stark reminder of how industries can, rise and fall.
Yeah, it really shows how American industry has changed over time. But what makes Braddock even more interesting right now is this potential sale of U.S. Steel.
Yeah.
That's the company that owns that giant mill. They might sell it to a Japanese company, Nippon Steel.
So we've got the sale hanging over the town. It's even caught President Biden's attention. What I'm curious about is, what does this all mean for the people who live in Braddock? What does it mean for them?
Well, we have to remember, U.S. Steel is the biggest taxpayer in Braddock. I mean, they basically keep the lights on there.
So, like, U.S. Steel's future is tied to Braddock's future.
Exactly. They're intertwined.
Yeah.
And that's why this sale is such a big deal. It's not just about business.
Right.
It's about livelihoods.
Yeah.
It's about a community's survival.
Absolutely. So our sources lay out some strong arguments for both sides of this sale. On the one hand,
On one hand.
Nippon Steel is offering a $1.3 billion investment in the Mon Valley Works facilities, which includes, that Edgar Thompson Works.
Yeah.
That kind of investment, I mean, that could be huge for Braddock. Imagine, like, all the new jobs, a revitalized economy. It's like a lifeline.
It could be. But it also brings up this dilemma we see a lot in America these days. How do you balance, economic needs with worries about national security, especially with all this global trade?
Right.
Some people are worried about selling, such a key steel producer to a foreign company. They think it could put the U.S. in a vulnerable position.
And we have to think about the human side of things, too.
Yeah, definitely.
What about those 650 people who still work at that Edgar Thompson Works? I bet job security is a big worry for them.
It is. Our sources introduce us to Lou Ransom Jr., Braddock's borough manager.
Okay.
And his perspective is really interesting. He grew up watching the mill, dominate the landscape, literally. He remembers when the soot was so thick you could barely see the sky.
Wow, I can't imagine what that must have been like.
So he's seen the impact of the mill, both the good and the bad.
Firsthand.
Yes, firsthand. And while he gets the environmental concerns, his focus is on keeping Braddock going, He's a pragmatist. He thinks the sale to Nippon Steel, even with the risks, might be Braddock's best chance for financial stability.
So from his viewpoint, the other option, like a U.S. buyer shutting down the mill completely, would be even worse.
Exactly. It's about picking the least bad option.
Right.
And his perspective brings up this big question, one that goes beyond Braddock. What happens to these towns in a post-industrial America? Can they change, reinvent themselves, but still hold on to their roots?
And that leads us to another part of this story, the people trying to do just that, reinvent Braddock. We meet Elena Weber and Matt Katazzi. They own Braddock Public House and the Brew Gentleman Brewery.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're part of this, new wave of entrepreneurs who want to breathe new life into the town.
It's interesting, their efforts are really inspired by Senator John Fetterman. When he was Braddock's mayor, he had this vision of the town becoming like an arts haven.
An arts haven, that's cool.
Yeah, and Weber and Katazzi are running with that vision. But all this uncertainty with the steel mill, it's a big shadow hanging over them, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. They're building something on what feels like, shaky ground. What happens to their dreams if the mill closes? What happens to the town's recovery? It's fragile.
It is. Their story really highlights this tension between, preserving the past and building a new future. It's something a lot of communities are dealing with.
Yeah, that's a great point. We'll come back to that tension in a minute.
Definitely.
But first, I think we need to explore
Yeah.
this idea of reinvention a little more. What does it actually look like in Braddock? Let's dig in.
Okay, sounds good. It's cool how Weber and Katazzi are weaving Braddock's history into their businesses.
Yeah.
Like a nod to the town's steelmaking past.
Totally. They even leased the building for their Braddock Public House from Senator Fetterman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they've decorated it with all these cool references to the past. There's this sign with steel workers and a molten steel ladle.
It's really symbolic.
It is.
It shows their commitment to the town, but it also highlights that tension, between the past and the future.
Yeah, that push and pull.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they're not the only ones doing this. Braddock has seen, a small but dedicated group of artists and new businesses pop up in recent years.
And they're not a distressed municipality anymore.
Right. That's huge.
It really shows how resilient the community is. They're determined to turn things around.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's be real, that Edgar Thompson works, it's still a big presence.
Looming, literally.
Literally and figuratively. Even Weber admits that if the mill closes, it would have a ripple effect on the whole town.
I mean, they've been through so much already. Depopulation, economic decline. To have to go through it all again would be, devastating.
Absolutely. And that's where Ransom's idea of collaboration comes in. He thinks Braddock can't go it alone.
Right.
He says they need to work with neighboring towns, share resources, and, find ways to use their strengths together.
So teamwork instead of competition.
Exactly.
I like that. So what's he thinking? What's his vision?
Well, he imagines like a regional revitalization, with Braddock as kind of the main hub.
The heart of it all.
Yeah, like a main street for the surrounding communities. It's ambitious.
It is, but it makes sense. If these towns can work together, maybe they can attract new businesses, create a more diverse economy.
Exactly. It's about adapting
Right, moving away from relying on just one industry.
and finding a new path.
This makes me think about other towns that are going through the same things.
Yeah, definitely.
What can they learn from Braddock?
Well, I think the main lesson is the importance of, community action. It can't just be one person or one business.
It takes a village.
Exactly.
Hmm.
People, businesses, local governments, they need to work together.
Be on the same team.
Yeah, create a shared vision for the future.
So it's not about waiting for someone else to come and fix things.
Right.
It's about looking at what your community has to offer, being open to change.
And finding ways to adapt and thrive, even in this post-industrial world.
And maybe the most important thing is believing in that collective action, believing that a community can come together even when things seem impossible.
Yeah, I agree. Braddock's story, no matter what happens, has a lot to teach us about economic change and resilience.
It shows that even in the shadow of that giant steel
It's
mill,
a spirit of innovation.
your renewal.
It can still shine through.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the story isn't over yet.
There's still so much potential.
So many possibilities.
Now, we've talked a lot about the economics, but I'm curious about those new businesses.
Yeah.
What challenges do they face? What kind of impact are they having? And what lessons can other towns learn from them?
Those are great questions. It's one thing to talk about revitalization, but what does it look like in action?
Right. Let's dive into that.
It's like we're seeing two different Braddocks, right?
Yeah.
You've got the Braddock of the past, that steel town, everyone close.
Tighten it.
Tight-knit, exactly. And then there's Braddock today, trying to, find its footing in a world that's moved on.
It's interesting how those two Braddocks, they kind of come together. You see it with people like Weber and Katazi.
Yeah.
They're like drawing from that history, but also pushing forward. It's a bridge.
It makes you think, can Braddock really reinvent itself, but still, hold on to its roots? It's so tied to that one industry. Can it thrive when that industry is,
Fading away.
yeah, fading away? It's a question a lot of communities are dealing with.
Absolutely. It's about loss,
But it's also about,
adaptation,
yeah,
resilience.
and that's where our listeners come in.
That's right.
What role can we play in revitalizing towns? Can we learn from Braddock? Can we apply those lessons to other places facing similar challenges?
It's call to action. We're not just watching this happen.
Right.
We can be part of the solution.
So what can we do? I mean, practically speaking.
Well, there are a lot of ways to make a difference. Supporting local businesses,
Yeah.
advocating for policies that help, even just starting conversations about the future of our communities. Every little thing helps.
When I think about Weber and Katazi, it's not just about opening a brewery.
So that's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's about taking a chance on a place people had given up on.
Believing in something new.
Exactly. And that belief, it's contagious.
Definitely. It inspires others.
It sparks hope.
People see others investing and think, hey, I want to be part of this too.
It all comes back to community, right?
Yeah.
We're in this together
We have a shared responsibility.
to create the future we want.
Braddock shows us that even when things seem impossible,
Yeah.
there's still potential.
There's hope.
Innovation, renewal.
Yeah.
It's a story that's still being written.
And we can all be part of it.
Exactly. So as we wrap up,
Wrap up our deep dive.
we want to leave you with this question. What role will you play in shaping the future of your community?
How will you contribute to a narrative of resilience, innovation, and hope?
Because sometimes the biggest changes start small.
Mm.
And that small spark, who knows, it might transform a whole town.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone.